Hi, I'm Susan, and I'm standing in a forest, a really burnt forest. And if you're like me from California, sadly, this is probably not an unfamiliar sight to you. There's been so many forest fires up and down the state that there's a lot of areas that look like this. And it's not just California, of course, fires have occurred all over the United States and also around the world. So there's just a lot of forests that end up looking like this. And we hear a lot about when the fires happen. It's so dramatic and so dangerous and scary, and the firefighters are doing their best, heroically trying to hold back the fires from people and property and protect the forest. They use their airplanes with water drops and their hand crews, and it's just a valiant effort. And unfortunately, there's just some areas that they can't protect. So I've just been sort of passionately curious about what happens after. What is the aftermath of a fire to impact a forest like this? Can nature come back? Will it come back? Does it come back to the same as it was? How long does it take to come back? And I've been embarking on a project to try and look at nature's comeback. Everybody loves a comeback story. I want to feel that there's a way for me to come back from hard times in my life. And I think nature can be a great teacher. And so I thought I would just kind of try and figure out, how does a forest recover in the years, decades after a fire? What happens to it? Can it recover? And I thought I would just try to look around and see what's happening in this forest. And it doesn't take that much to look around. This fire happened in September of 2022, so it's been about 3 years, and you can see there's still a lot of nothing. The fire was extremely severe, and you see a lot of standing dead trees and not much regrowth in this area. But as you walk around and look closely, you can see signs, and it's so hopeful, and I want to share some of that with you. Okay, first let's look at this guy. So here we have a little white fir or Douglas fir, honestly I don't know what, but it's about 15 inches tall, and it's growing here in this area where really when you first look around you don't see much, but when you look closely you'll see something like this. So as I mentioned, this fire was 3 years old, and I'm guessing that this Douglas fir started growing after the fire. And I didn't mention before, but this forest is what's called a mixed conifer forest. So it has different kinds of conifers, pines like ponderosa pine and sugar pine, and firs like this Douglas fir or white fir. It also has oaks like black oaks in it. So it's a really interesting forest where multiple different types of plants are trying to survive and come back. So good job, little fir. Happy to see this guy on its way, looking like it's on its path to recovery. And then there's this guy. Look at this little guy, maybe an inch off the ground. And this I think this is some sort of pine. And this probably grew up just this season. It's like July now. And so these are just little sprouts or seedlings, I guess you call them, that just pop up. And I think they don't all survive year after year. There's a lot of competition for them in terms of deer and other animals that want to eat them, but they start out this way. Let's go see if we can find someone that started 2 or 3 years ago and see where they're at now. Okay, check out this guy. It's probably at least a year old, and so I think it's gonna make it. Probably this looks like it's a ponderosa pine. So happy to see this guy sprouting back. And look at this guy. Definitely a ponderosa pine. When they get older, you can tell how old they are by the space between the branches that they put out. But I'm not sure how to assess how old this one is, but I'm gonna say 2 years or so. So probably came back as a little seedling just post the fire, and then got to keep growing every season. So it's really a good and hopeful sign. And it's not just the conifers that are trying to come back. Actually, as I mentioned, that the mixed conifer forest also has black oaks in them. So these deciduous trees. And so you see that they're also trying to come back. In fact, they have a pretty good advantage over the conifers, because not only can they regrow from acorns, they can also, I'm going to turn over here, sprout new leaves from the base of their tree, even though the tree was damaged essentially beyond repair. There's no more leaves up top, but they're regrowing these sprouts at the bottom. So the pine trees, conifers can't do that. They have to start the new seedlings from their pine cones that they dropped, and they just can't sort of regenerate out of nowhere. And actually, I'm not sure that you can see it, but down here, another interesting aspect of the oaks is, if you can see in the oak tree down there, that not only does it have the ability to re-sprout from the base of its trunk, but it can also sprout from along the branches. So that's an advantage for them. And it's not just the trees that are coming back. There are sections of this forest where the low brush and understory that was growing under the shade of the trees when they were alive is now open to the sun, and it's just going crazy. It's like getting all the nutrients it needs from the sun, and this area must have the right conditions to propagate the growth of this low-lying shrub. So this is actually pretty much all deer brush, and there are other areas that have other types of low-lying undergrowth. And it's interesting because in this section of the forest, what will probably happen is this growth of this deer brush is so fast that it can shade out those little seedlings. So, I mean, those were only an inch tall to get started, and they need the sun. So only in areas where you don't have this regrowth or full growth of the understory will those little conifers be able to survive. So what's happening potentially in here is that this area will get suppressed, and this bush will come up, and there will be no trees that regrow here. And in fact, you can see this in some of the forestous areas that were damaged this severely by a fire, that the conifers never do regrow, and all you now have is just miles and miles of what used to be beautiful conifer forests that are just now bushlands. So I think there's a question now in forestry practices about how best to manage this. Do we need some human intervention to suppress this growth of the shrubs that will block out the trees to regrow, or do we let nature just do its thing? So I don't know. I think it's you know, still impressive to just look and see what's happening as nature does its comeback, and I am excited to kind of return to here and see how it changes over the years. What will it look like in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years, and hopefully I'll be around long enough to try and see as much as I can. And so it's interesting to be able to look at all this, and I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.